Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the Financial Advisors Workshop. And we have a very interesting gentleman that we're going to meet with today who's out in California. His name is Chris Janeway. And Chris is the founder of Fourth Point Wealth and worked with a number of other firms prior to that. And you've been at it for about 4 years, and you're now the founder and CEO of the firm. So, Chris, welcome to the Financial Advisor Workshop.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Well, good. So, Chris, you've got quite an interesting career, about 14 years in the industry. You manage about 100 million. Is that right?
Yep.
Excellent. So tell us about your firm and how you decided to found it and how it all developed.
Yeah. So I worked with another firm for about 10 years. And I suppose some of it was timing. It was, the natural evolution of things that kind of felt like I was at my ceiling to some extent and needed to try my hand and see if I could do this thing while I was still young and energetic and hungry for it. So I started Fourth Point Wealth about 4 years ago. We moved. My wife is from Newport Beach. We're in Newport Beach now. We were in Santa Barbara. And so we moved from Santa Barbara down to Newport Beach and started Fourth Point Wealth. It's been an exciting, great adventure. And certainly it's grown a lot faster than I planned around, which is a great problem to have. We're loving life. So
excellent. So you founded the firm, but then you also you're open to growth and you found a partner. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So as I said, sometimes the best deals kind of fall into your lap at the right timing, right place. And I'm a big believer in getting the right people on the bus rather than just kind of growing for the sake of growth. And so we found an advisor who we had met along the way somewhere, and he had been negotiating an exit plan with somebody else, and we just kind of got to talking. So we found that it was the right partnership. His client base was kind of right for what we do and the right relationships, and he was a very mission-oriented advisor who cared very deeply that it go to the right process, the right people, and that somebody's going to take care of his clients. And so that worked out. So we had him come on board for about 2 years, and he just retired at the end of the year. So we're excited for him and sad to lose him, but that ended up going really well.
Nice. So now it's just you, yourself, and your assistant, and then you guys process the whole program yourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. So, looking for the next people to put on the bus, certainly, but not in a massive rush to just scoop up advisors everywhere. I think that brings in a lot of problems. So we've got a couple of folks who are looking to maybe join us when the timing's right for them, but no announcements yet, I suppose.
Well, that's great. When you live in a wonderful area.
Yeah.
So you talk a lot about education, and in our pre-discussion, we talked about that. And you do that obviously for the community, but what about for clients? Let's talk about that first.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of the core foundation of what we do, why I left where I was and started a firm. I don't think our industry does a great job of really teaching people how to get from A to B. The language can be very intimidating to folks, kind of like legal language. When it's broken down into simpler terms, people click. You can see the light bulb go off and they go, oh my gosh, and their life won't be the same because they don't have this level of fear and anxiety. But our industry, we're low trust. Everybody's got some sales pitch, right? And instead of just saying, no, it's really simple. Here's how you do this, right? And here's how you build wealth for your family, and here's how you protect it. And when you teach them those things, I find that if I give them enough tools to probably go out and do it on their own, they end up saying, no, I like you and I want you to do it, right? I hire a landscaper for my house. I love doing the landscaping. I find it relaxing to go cut the grass, but I don't have a whole lot of time. I'm coaching my kids in sports and doing things and running a business. And so I hire somebody, right? But I enjoy doing it. So it's just it's finding the right partner to do it. And so I think that education is kind of the core foundation for Fourth Point Wealth. We do a lot of it because I need people to understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. That builds trust over time, and sometimes you got to repeat it, right? It doesn't all sink in at once, and so you got to make sure you're constantly doing those things.
That's the nature of training, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, and the best client is an informed client. It sounds like
right.
they could do this on their own, but they hire you because they actually have confidence that you know what you're talking about because you were training them.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So now we talked a little bit about some of the work you did before you started your firm
Yeah.
and in the retirement planning area, and that involved a lot of training as well, didn't it?
Yep, absolutely. So I got my start in the K-12 and ERISA plan market. So I was 22 years old. It was 2008. It wasn't a great time to just jump in and be a production only financial advisor, right? So life was difficult, and I think to some degree ignorance was bliss. I was just kind of ready to get going, and so that was fortunate. But the differentiator was on the education side. So I could come into a niche market like the employer sponsored plans and start adding value to folks who needed some of that understanding. The employers needed somebody to come in and teach it. They weren't equipped to deal with it, and I could carve out a great niche. That was wonderful. So when you kept showing up and kept teaching and kept adding value, and people started asking those questions for their personal assets, and that C-suite would start to come in and say, hey, I talk to you more than my other advisors, or, hey, I've been doing this on my own for an awful long time. And my 401k over here seems to be doing much better. Can we talk about why? So showing up and teaching and putting in all that value up front for the 3-4 years is what ultimately led to the wealth management side growing.
Nice. Well, and being present and being seeing how people interface with you, they
Right.
more attracted to you.
Yeah, absolutely. You build trust over time, right? Trust doesn't happen overnight, but when you just keep showing up, and you're not just some enrollment agent who comes once a year with your packet and a stock PowerPoint, right? We can do topical things and answer real questions. Then people start to get an idea of if you're the right person for them, right? And so that began to grow, and then it really snowballed from there.
So, Chris, when you model out the business and you do plans like that, do you charge extra fees for that, or is there like a subscription fee for a company, or is it based on the assets of the plan?
No, so each employer that we have is going to get an education plan put in. So I don't ever try to be, and there's a big race to the bottom in fees right now in retirement plans, which isn't always a bad thing. Fees in retirement plans were really high for a very long time, and people just don't benchmark them. They don't look. So I try to make sure that we're right at or just frankly above the median. So I'm not going to be the cheapest retirement plan provider, but man, our plans work. Participation's great. Contributions are really high. And the reason is somebody is showing up. And I really believe that somebody's coming in and answering real questions for people rather than saying, here's your online training videos, or here's your enrollment agent once a year. There's a resource, there's somebody they can trust and kind of go to and counsel them through it.
Yeah. Interesting. So then you've also, in addition to training clients and plan participants and whatnot, you've also done a lot of speaking, like almost a similar theme, haven't you?
Yeah. We started probably 10 years ago. We built a financial literacy program within the public school system. I was doing a lot of work with their foundation there, and we saw a gap, and kids were leaving high school completely unprepared, right? And this is a story we've all heard a million times over, right? They don't teach us how to file our taxes in high school. And so we decided to do something about it. And I was probably doing 100 hours a year in the high schools throughout Southern California, and ended up teaching and kind of training other people to come in and be resources. The local banks really liked getting involved in that as well. And so we kind of trained up an army, but we built a curriculum to put into the schools, and people ate it up. The kids were hyper engaged. They wanted to learn this stuff. They haven't heard it. It's still kind of faux pas to talk about money at home. Maybe mom and dad aren't so great, or in credit card debt too, right? The statistics would show it. And so maybe they don't trust their family. And some of the high schools, it's interesting, the socioeconomic differences, some of the classes that we're teaching and the questions that were coming up versus other areas. And but you had a real impact. Kids were absolutely engaged in trying to figure out, how do I not screw up my life and maybe grow some wealth someday, no matter what background they came from. But then you could see in the back of the room, the teacher was furiously taking notes, right? Every time, and they're asking questions and going and really engaging in it. And that kind of helped build more into what we were doing in the employer plans, and these things kind of supplemented each other. And then we started getting asked to come in and talk at conferences, et cetera, along the way to kind of talk exactly about what we're doing. And this has continued to grow. And now I'm teaching at my old university as well, and working with the athletics department to teach a lot of this.
Nice. Well, good. So how long have you done this with nonprofit groups or schools?
Yeah, I started, probably right from the beginning. As soon people love free work, right? And so when I had no clients and was just hungry, and it's about repetitions and going out there and pounding the pavement, I suppose, to some degree. So I was coaching in a high school football team, and that's where some of that started, is working within the athletic department. Kind of started talking about a little bit, and they asked questions, and then you build some relationships, and all of a sudden I'm teaching in the schools and running some classes in the evening or after school for teachers, doing educational workshops that then built into the kids and bringing it to the classroom, et cetera. So I feel like this thing, like I said, is kind of snowballing itself, but that was really from day one, is how can I offer some value and show who I am, and that I'm not just some kid, is that I'm here to help, and that really grew. So it's been about 14 years that I've been doing financial education in some capacity, which has just kind of changed and grown over time.
So how much business that you have currently has come out from some of the good work you've done outside the industry? Is there any bit of spillover there?
All the time. I mean, I attribute honestly all of our success to being that value add, and let's go out and teach. And yeah, I think of Wizard of Oz, right? Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. That's our industry, right? I feel like that's really how financial services is set up, is we're seeing this grandiose thing that can be intimidating. And really it's just, if I pull the curtain back, man, it's so simple. Oh, I didn't know that. And I can do these things and answer these questions for myself. And then they frankly know what questions to ask their advisor or CPA or estate plan attorney. They can start to be armed to make better decisions for themselves. And I find that they hire us because of it. Right. So when they know what to evaluate and how, then, and that can be anywhere from a young couple who's been building their, savings, and they bought a house and now it's time to start really growing investments, all the way up to, somebody who's ultra high net worth that we have coming on, who doesn't have, he knew how to make money. He didn't really know how to invest money and protect it and grow it. And so, some of these basic questions are still swirling in his mind as well. And even though he's been immensely successful and tens of millions of dollars. So the answers to those questions are important no matter where we're at. So I attribute all of our success to that teaching type mentality. And there's a lot of it that comes directly, and all of it in some fashion is because of, I think that's just the personality of the firm and why you'd hire me.
It's a very giving theory, and in a sense, that's a big part of our business, is giving people advice and help, and there's so much to it. But it sounds like it's really working for you as you develop practice and getting to be known in the community up in Santa Barbara, and now of course down in Newport.
Right.
Newport's very open to that, isn't it? The Newport Beach area.
Yeah, it's great. It's a big pond, right? There's a lot of success going on here and a lot of competition, but boy, people are growing and successful, and there's so much to get involved in. You find where you feel like you fit, and people grab on. It's been a wonderful place to grow a business and be able to be in the community and coach the sports and sponsor the leagues and do those things and really have the small town feel that it speaks to me, right? And kind of help in my local market. But that's been where our growth is as well. It's really led to success, just being a partner. So I think, the more you give, the more you get.
Yes, it's great stuff. Well, so now switching back to your practice.
Sure.
So once you have a client, how do you invest for them? How do you manage? Are you money managers yourselves? Do you work with managers? How do you do it?
Yeah, so I tend to be kind of a factor guy. So I'm not a stock and bond trader, highly active. This is how can we build an efficient portfolio and then keep you on your plan for a really long time, right? So that's really my approach. We're more on the passive side. So a lot of DFA, Vanguard, BlackRock for low expenses and building those portfolios. So I'm not trying to be the new algorithm that solves the world's problems and outperforms everything. I think that's a dangerous line to start to cross, to think that I'm some guru, right? But it's how can we do this the right way for a long period of time? And I think 90% of the battle is making sure people don't take 2 steps forward, 1 step back on a bad decision, which is ultimately again where that education piece comes in. Is the more we're teaching them how we do it and why we do it, the more likely they are to stick with it. Our job is kind of like being a fireman. It's easy when it's easy. While we're talking right now, the market's down 3% today, right? So I'm sure that I'll have to slide down the pole here and put out some fires, and that's when we earn our worth. Is making sure that when it's scary and intimidating, that people get through that.
So do you use specific planning software, or is it more custom?
Yeah, our planning software is eMoney. So I do all of our financial planning within there. So I'm sure that's not a whole lot different than most that are out there. There's kind of the big 2 or 3 software providers. So all the planning is within eMoney. And then we'll use, depending on the client to some extent, whether that's a model type portfolio as a core and maybe some customization if we need to, or InvestNet for our ultra high net worth, that we'll bring in some of those and create some portfolios and bring in extra resources. But planning is the foundation, and that's all through eMoney.
So then when you meet with them quite often, where you review it, or what is your client plan in that sense?
Yep. Some of that's tiered by where they are in their life, not so much their money. Some of that is going to be more, for that ultra high net worth. We talk almost every other week, right? That's especially early on, and there's a lot of changes in that person's life. But we'll talk almost every other week at certain levels, especially when there's lots of life changes. But we have, for a lot of folks, we have young savers as well, which I really focus on. I'm not get me all the retirees. It's how can I find the right people? I love bringing in young couples that are upwardly mobile, educated, working on their careers, and let's get them now and get them to that million plus faster because we gave them good advice and they'll be sticky. Those people, there's not as many changes going on in their life. If their job hasn't changed, they haven't had more kids, we can do an annual review and do some check-ins along the way. And on a cadence. So we somewhat customize it when we set our different brackets for the clients and kind of what that core service offering is. But then the real question that we make sure that our people know is if there is a life change, you got to call us, right? You got to let us know, because we can't look at it through the right lens unless we have all the data inputs. And so the famous line from clients is, "Oh, I don't want to bug you. I know you're busy. I don't want to bug you. I don't want to bug you." And people say it all the time. They feel like they're bothering me. Hey, you pay me to listen to you, right? So it's don't worry. You need to pick up that phone and call us. Shoot us the email. Let us know what's going on in your life, because the more I know, the better I can be at giving you advice. So promising people they're not bothering us when we love talking to them, right? I come to work because we work with good people, and we've all had that call ID that comes in where your heart sinks and you think, not today. And that's part of why I started Fourth Point as well. Is I work, the number one thing when we look at what's a fit is there a good rapport? Do we feel like it's a personal fit? Do I want to talk to you because I'm going to be better at my job than when I'm excited to talk to you and hear about your family and more that's going on? So it's got to be a personal fit first.
People do business with people they like.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. So how's it going this year? Markets are pretty rough. Are clients getting a little excited here, or are they generally kind of following the plan?
Yeah, I'd say the clients that we've had for a long time, and quite a few came with me, they're good, right? We haven't been tested in a while. I think that the 30% drop when COVID hit was a nice reminder that markets can be volatile, right? We don't just win at all times for 10 years. So that was a really good moment to jump back in and say, hey, this is a big part of the process. We don't get the reward unless we ride the roller coaster. And if you don't like
Right.
the roller coaster, we need to figure out what level we can be at. But
Right.
some of the folks who haven't been with us as long and haven't been tested in markets for a long time, or even new to investing, right? This is a different world for them. So it's jumping in, and we don't have people calling to say, get me out, get me out, get me out, but they do want to hear from you, right? They want to make sure we have to instill the confidence that that we're on top of this thing, right? And they're still doing the right thing, and that markets being volatile that's a part of the plan. This is all normal. So it doesn't feel like it when we're in it, but it's all normal.
Yeah. So do you do anything different in markets like this, or do you have a plan, a long-term plan, and follow that plan?
Yeah, I do tend to ramp up the communication. So a lot of outbound phone calls, just doing quick check-ins, especially for folks who we know can be particularly more nervous or are going into a life change. Sequence of returns is important. If I've had somebody that's just retired, we're having the conversation right now that hey, depending on where this turns out, it may be time for a pay cut for year one, and making sure that we're buying years on the back end. And so we'll ramp up a lot of that outbound communication. We'll hold webinars, et cetera, as well, for people to kind of dial in and ask those questions. And so it's a big outbound effort, like it was when COVID struck, right? And everybody was afraid. So this one is, obviously a little bit longer lasting here and slightly different, but people just want to, again, they want to hear from you and know that you're around and available and on top of things.
Yeah. So where do you go from here, Chris? Are you planning to grow the practice on your own now, or are you going to consider? We talked a little bit about adding other advisors.
Yeah.
Buy practices. What's the growth scenario for your firm?
Yeah. I mentioned earlier when we spoke, so I'm at that unique point that a lot of people get to, but it's okay. Here we are at around 100 million, and my capacity is starting to get pressed a little bit. And
right,
we want to be do I want this to be a lifestyle practice? Do I want this to be the $10 billion RIA and we're going out and doing tons of M&A? And I think that the answer probably lies in between. I enjoy growth. I would like growth, and frankly, I like being a part of a team. So I'd like more people around me in the office every day, right? So, but I'm willing to take that slow to find the right people for the bus. And so we have a couple folks that are looking at joining us here and finding the right timing for them as well, which is always the trick in laying it all out. But I do see us bringing on people. I've put all the systems in place as well. I've got the administrative and the outsourced stuff for a lot of the technology that we use, and can automate some of the calendaring and client review process, and just keeping up to date, so kind of put scale back in their own lives, whether that's because they want to grow more or they want to see their families more. And so I've got a lot of those tools in place that for the right people that are looking to join can really leverage it and make it a valuable place. I think, again, to criticize our industry, there's a lot of money that's getting thrown around, but people jump because they think the grass is greener, and then they get there and they realize they're in the same exact spot with handcuffs on. And so kind of giving people a place that's a reason to stay, right? Not necessarily a reason to jump and join is the challenge. But I see us growing. I'd like to see us grow over time, but I'm not looking for a big transaction. So it's not a race to 10 billion to offload. I don't know that it's something I ever really want to sell. I just like what I do.
It's real advisory. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, you're on the Financial Advisors Workshop podcast, and of course the video clips will be going out on TikTok and other services. So if you can think of anything you'd like to tell our colleagues in the financial advisor industry, is there any message you'd like to send everybody?
I think the biggest thing is that there's been a lot of change in the industry, right? Whether that's social media, text messaging, how we do business is changing pretty fast. COVID really accelerated a lot of that as well, when all of a sudden people couldn't sit down in the office for a long time. And that's been really intimidating for a lot of folks, I think, that they're feeling like they can't keep up. And I don't think that necessarily needs to be the case. Again, it's like teaching finance, right? It's not as scary once you give a system or a process. And we've been really successful with how to communicate in the times, I suppose. and dealing with compliance, right? That's the cop-out answer is, oh, well, I can't do that with compliance. And that's not necessarily the answer. Is we can find compliant, reliable, really great ways to communicate in the current kind of environment, I suppose, and all the platforms to help people grow or help people really deepen the relationships they do have, and meeting people where they are. So that's the one thing is I know it can be scary for our industry, but we've been really successful with it, and I think we'll continue to be. And we're happy to kind of share the secret. Like I said, we'll pull back that curtain, and it's not as bad as it may seem.
So stay the course, essentially. That's great.
Yeah, and be willing to learn, right? So instead of saying, "Oh, I can't do that for compliance," or "Oh, I could never do the social media thing," I can't stand social media. It's not my thing. But we're good at how it works, right? And because I think it's just a cost of doing business, and we got to do that and have a presence. And like I said, we have to meet people where they are. And so as much as I don't love it, it's what we have to do to be successful. And it's not as scary. You got to start it, and you have to have a process, and it's got to be thought out. But like I said, we can help people kind of scale that as well.
Nice. Well, thank you, Chris. This is a great message. And thank you for being with us today in the Financial Advisors Workshop. We have lots of great people in our industry, and you're one of them. And I would say, for people who are looking to learn, to educate, you're a real inspiration for what
thank you.
Our industry does. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us today.
You got it. It's my pleasure.
Thanks, Chris Janeway of Newport Beach, California, for being with us today in the 4-Star Financial Advisors Workshop. And we'll be back, everybody, with another episode very shortly. And again, thanks, Chris, for being with us today.
You got it. Thank you.